Hi everyone, welcome back to Seed Starting Part 2 in my series of sowing out cool flower seeds for January. Thank you for joining, and I hope that you enjoy this video and the series of seed starting videos. If you do like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and even comment if you feel like it. If you have any questions, I'd appreciate any questions that you have. So in today's video, I thought that we should start sowing my sweet pea seeds. I did soak them overnight, and so they are ready to sow into a couple different containers. I will show you those. I have a deep rooted system that I picked up last year from Garden Supply, and then I have some regular pots that I will also use. So the beauty of the deep rooted system is that sweet peas have a deep taproot, and that encourages them to have nice, thick, healthy roots. I also will be using some smaller pots that I just happen to have. And if you don't have a deep rooting system, that's quite all right, because I also use some regular pots. Just find some the deepest possible ones, whether it's a 3-inch or 4-inch, ideally a 4 to 5 inch. But if you have maybe a 3 or 4 inch, that could work too. So the difference between sowing my sweet peas last year that turned out really well, they were quite colorful, and this year the only difference is that I would like to sow them earlier in late January. Starting your sweet peas in early February or late January and under cool temperatures is that you are going to mimic or replicate the cool weather that's outside that eventually will be the area or the weather conditions where you will be planting your sweet peas. So last year I had planted them in both the ground on my southwest side of the garden underneath my arbors that hold my roses, my climbing roses, and they didn't flower at all, which was really disappointing. And when I thought about it, I realized that it was just too sunny and too hot in that location. Where my sweet peas did very well were in my containers that were on the patio right here beside me. And my patio faces north, and so as a result, it gets afternoon sun but morning shade. So I think that that's going to be another ideal location, and I will be planting them out in my containers that are in the greenhouse currently. You've seen some of my containers with the obelisks in the greenhouse. In the fall, we had carried in these pots because I was trying to overwinter my mandavillas, but unfortunately it was just too cold in the greenhouse, so those mandavillas didn't survive. But prior to having the mandavillas in the containers, I did have my sweet peas growing in there in early spring. I believe I planted them out in May. I started out my seeds in late February, around February 24th, and then they started blooming really beautifully within mid-May to early June. Now, unfortunately, it was hard to keep up with the watering because I do hand water everything. And by the end of June, my sweet peas had gotten a little bit crispy, and we happened to also be going away on vacation. So I did end up pulling them out at the end of June. And also, since we were going away, I didn't want my neighbors who were looking after the garden to have, more containers than necessary to keep up with and to water. So this year I'm hoping by getting them out 4 to 6 weeks before my last frost, and my last frost in northern Illinois is around April 20th to April 30th. So I back that up by 12 weeks, and that brings me to the end of January. So I will plan to sow my seeds and have them sitting here in the greenhouse where the temperatures are cool, and that would be on average between the mid 40s to 50s, and on some hot sunny days it might even go higher, but on average my temperatures in the greenhouse I think are about in the mid 50s. So last year the difference is that I planted my sweet peas under grow lights, and they did well. And if you want to see more about my seed starting journey, I have a I have a link at the end of the video to all of my seed starting videos. But you'll see in one of my videos that they had actually grown really tall and leggy as they were seeking the light under grow lights. And that was okay, but it wasn't ideal. You actually want your sweet pea seedlings to grow a little bit shorter and stockier, which will result in healthier, deep roots. Mine, on the other hand, grew really fast, tall and leggy, and I knew that it was a little early to plant outside, so I ended up staking them with little skewers. So this year, by getting ahead of it, planting them early, starting them earlier at the end of January and getting them in my containers, and maybe also in my side yard here behind me I have an obelisk on the let's see, that would be the east side of my property, of my yard, and there's a nice obelisk there, and so I might put some on that side because it's actually great for sweet peas because it has morning sun and afternoon shade. So I think that might be a great location as well. So I think I'll be trying that location, as well as my 3 containers that are on the patio. As I mentioned, they'll be on the north side. So let's just get a start on my sweet peas. I have here my containers that I will be planting my sweet peas into. So the first one is the deep rooted system from Gardener Supply, and I'm not sponsored by them by any means, but I did purchase this last year, and I found it to be pretty successful. It is a deep rooted system that you can get on Gardener Supply. It comes with a dome and a humidity dome, and these deep root systems that are about, I believe they're supposed to be 4 3/4 inch tall root trays. And the beauty of these is that they open up and split in half like this, and when you're filling them with soil, you can fill up both sides and then clip them together. And also during the process of growth, you can actually split these apart and look at your roots and see how they're growing. It's also easier to fill your trays with soil with them open versus trying to put the soil in through the top and not get enough soil to the bottom. So it's a great design system that way. And we have here, I believe, 28 cells. There's 7 of these inserts and 4 in each one, so that's 28 cells. So we're going to plant those up today. And I also have these from Bootstrap Farmer. I've loved the Bootstrap Farmer series. I've found them to be a little pricey, to be honest. However, last year I wanted to give them a try, and I found these smaller configurations where I just had to buy 4 of these 4 cell trays, and these are, I believe they're 4 inches deep. Yep, they're 4 inches deep. So it's about a little shorter, 3/4 of an inch shorter than the deep root system, but I think these will work out fine. Last year, because I planted 3 packages of seeds, I ended up using even shorter pots, and I did notice as they were developing that the roots started coming out. So at least here, that's a pretty deep root. It's my deepest pot that I have currently. And so I have 4 of these, so that'll be 16. So hopefully that'll be enough. Is that I have 150 seeds to sow, and I did soak all of them overnight last night. So we are going to try and plant up all of them. So whether I do 2 per cell or 1 per cell, because these are new seeds, is sort of debatable. So if Johnny's is anything like rareseeds.com or Baker Creek, if they're anything like them, they might be kind enough to send me more than 50 seeds. I don't know if they have the mechanics or a machine that counts out, 50 exact seeds, or if they gave me more or less. We'll find out. But I think ideally I can do one group of one variety in this tray, and then another variety. So that's 16. Gosh, these are pretty big. Usually you plant up things in here, but I like that these are deep. So I might actually put, gosh, maybe 3 in each of these. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12. 12 times 4 is 48. So that would be a second variety roughly. So that's 2 varieties, and I have 3. So I'm going to have to think about where I'm going to plant my 3rd variety. Maybe I'll order up another set, or find something in my rack over there. I'm looking down at my collection of trays. So we'll find something and plant those up. For today, I'm just going to show you how we plant up this deep root system, and the 4-cell trays that are 4 inches deep from Bootstrap Farmer. Spoiler alert, I did break down and invest in some Bootstrap Farmer pots. I believe I ordered the 2.5 inch deep, 2.5 inch or 2 inch by 2.5 inch deep pots. They're super colorful. I was inspired by all those YouTubers that are carrying or that are using Bootstrap Farmer. And since I tested the black ones last year and I'm very impressed with their sturdiness, I went ahead and invested in some. Unfortunately, I don't think I bought enough because I did buy the 2 inch ones that I'm going to use for Snapdragons. So once those arrive, and hopefully that'll be shortly, because I plan to sow my Snapdragons early February, and so I will be using my new pots for those. And quite frankly, I just don't have enough because I'm planting more obviously this year. So anyway, let's carry on and start filling up the trays with soil. Got my gloves on that are still damp from yesterday, and I do have a little bit of the Burpee seed starter mix in my tray here that I'm going to use up, and maybe we can use this as a test within the same deep root tray system, where some of them will have the Burpee that's made with coconut coir, and the other half, or probably more than half of the trays, will have the Miracle-Gro seed starter mix. It'll be a good test. And because as I mentioned in my other video where I planted up my my pansies and violas, that I'm not really selective about the type of potting mix. I mean, if I did more volume, if I was a farm, absolutely I would consider making my own mix. And I've watched the regenerative gardener make up a recipe, and I just don't have the volume to bring in all those different ingredients to make my own. So this is still, you can't really add too much water. I mean, you don't want it to be sopping, but yeah, you still need it to be somewhat damp, especially in a deep root system where you have more soil. All right, I think that's pretty good. It forms nicely. I can kind of squeeze it out, but I think it's good. So let's just start filling these up, and hopefully you can see the key is not to get any of the soil around the little notches that locks the two halves together. So you want to fill them up pretty full on each half. It's going to fill pretty much just one tray of 4 cells at this point, because as you can see, it's pretty deep, quite a bit of soil, or potting mix, whichever you're using. I do find that this Burpee organic seed starter mix, because it has a lot of the coconut in it, find it to be less dense, more airy, more, if that's the word, fluffy. I don't know. But there's definitely a difference. The other regular potting mix seems to be more dense. You know, the big criticism is that the other potting mixes have peat moss, and peat is um, kind of controversial, which I'm not going to get into, but farmers do talk about it. The regenerative gardener talks in length about the pros and cons of using peat. I think in my next video, I should be able to get my hands on some Pro Mix, which is what Crowley House Farm uses for her seed starting. And what I liked about it is that it comes in big 2 cubic foot containers, which I think is great value for anywhere from $20 to $30. So I don't know if you can see there, but you basically lock them in. You can see some of the excess moisture came out, which is nice, like it pushes it out. And there is a bit of a crack in the soil because we put 2 halves together. So you can just top those up if you want. But I think I'm just going to leave that, because then I can just sink in my, well, maybe I will top it up a little bit. But I can definitely sink in my seeds. Sweet pea seeds are fairly large, as you'll see in a minute. So I'm probably going to take a little, my dibber maybe, or the back of a pen or pencil, and poke the hole for the seeds so that it gets put in there. But that's the idea. Okay, so we're ready to sow the seeds. And the first one is, these are all from Johnny's. And as I mentioned, there were 50 seeds in a package, supposedly. I've pre-soaked them overnight. And these ones are called Elegance Formula Mix. These are a cut flower. You put them in the back of the border, fences, trellises, arbors, and cottage gardens. It says to transplant as soon as the soil can be worked. An option to growing your seeds, starting your seeds indoors, is to direct seed and sow the seeds 6 weeks before last frost. I have never direct sowed my sweet peas. I did direct sow other annuals like African daisies, poppies, bachelor's buttons. I've direct sowed quite a few of those, all of which were successful except for poppies. So poppies, I will sow those through the winter sowing method with the jugs. So getting back to these, you can direct sow sweet peas. If any of you have successfully direct sowed sweet peas, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. It basically says sun in rich, deep, loamy, moist, well-drained soil, 6 inches apart. Support is needed. You harvest them when there's half the flowers on the stem are open, and we'll go through all that when it comes time for harvesting. So I wanted to take a look at these seeds. Soaking your seeds is to hopefully have some of them crack open. And sweet pea has a very hard shell, and I don't know if you can see here. And that's the whole purpose, is because it's a hard shell, by pre-soaking them, that you're opening the seed a little bit and the shell, so that it will germinate quicker. So according to the package, you need to sow the seeds about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch deep. So I have my nib here, nib, dib, and I'm just, a 1/2 inch is about to here, 1/4 inch is there. So I'm just poking along here. Just sort of touching lightly in there, because that's where the seed will drop. Because these seeds are fresh, I just bought them this year, I believe. Let me just double check the package, because I did buy some last year at the end of the season, so that I would have the seeds I wanted. So definitely I'm going to do, I think I've decided I'm going to do 4 over here on these 4-cell trays, because they're so big. A lot of surface area. And hopefully I don't need to pot them up. Because as I just finished saying, I don't like having to pot things up, just in the interest of time and cost. All right, just gonna drop it in there, give it a little push. I think last year I just did 1 per cell in these ones, because I want there to be enough soil for the roots. And if I recall, even with my hardware store seeds, I got close to 100% germination, which was pretty awesome. 80% germination, they say, is good. I strive for at least 80%. And after this, I'm going to put some vermiculite. Now, on the topic of whether they need light or darkness to germinate, both pansies and sweet peas say they need darkness to germinate. I did not cover them with a dark tray, these ones, and that's because these are planted 1/4 to a 1/2 inch deep. So the soil basically that is, covers them, it provides the darkness that it needs, plus the extra vermiculite. And versus pansies are surface sowed, so they needed that extra. I'm going to put another one in this one, because the seed is really small. So this one I'm going to put 2. Some of the seeds are pretty large. So let's just cover these up, make sure they're covered, that the holes are covered quickly. I don't have one of those cute little shovels that I saw. One of the YouTubers that I was watching had these cute little shovel. There's so many tools that you can own for seed starting and gardening. It is a growing business, and man, there's just so many gadgets and things that you can buy, and sometimes I get enticed into purchasing them. Other times I think, okay, do you really need it? I think Janie did a video on all the different gadgets, and she tested them and did a review on a bunch of gadgets, gardening gadgets, and gave her personal review on whether or not they were worthwhile or not. Because sweet peas need darkness to germinate, you can be pretty generous with your vermiculite because it just adds that much more darkness, if you will. Covers up the dirt, the soil, and the seeds that much more. And obviously, vermiculite helps maintain moisture and reduce any kind of fungus, bacteria from developing on your seeds with all this moisture. So I'm going to go ahead, put the dome, and we'll move on to the next one. For now, they're going down here on this little table. So the next one is, let's do Elegance Lavender, because I don't know why I bought Mammoth Choice Mix, because it's probably similar, if I remember the picture, to Elegance Formula, but I went ahead and bought it. This one is Elegance Lavender, obviously a lavender color, and I'm going to plop in 4 per cell in these 4-inch square. These are like a 2-inch square, but they're 4 inches deep. And you can do a couple things to, get them to the depth that you want them. You can either push them in to the depth that you think, like fingernail, half a fingernail down, or you can just set them on the surface and then cover them in soil. But because I filled up the cell pretty full, I'm just sort of dropping in. Just dropping them in. All right, we're good. I think I have the odd seed left. These are good. I think 4 was pushing it. Ideally 3, but I wanted to use up that one package. I just love sweet peas, and if I have extra plants, then I can always give them away or sell them if I end up doing a market. So that's it for today's video. I want to thank you for joining me as I talked about sweet peas today and sowing them in my 4-cell trays and my deep-rooted trays. I hope that that was helpful to you, and I will be sharing the progress of these seedlings. And next video, I will be doing some winter sowing. There's a couple methods out there that I'll be testing, so I hope you join me, and thank you again for joining me today. Bye-bye.